day 2 of our Please Ask campaign. I am Aniqua Acree, the founder and executive director of Journey to Self, or J2S, as I like to call it. We are a Georgia-based nonprofit focused on promoting healing and enlightening and empowering communities of color. So our Please Ask campaign is a community engagement campaign that is focused on bringing awareness to childhood sexual abuse while also creating these safe spaces for healing conversations to take place. The goal, y'all, is for you all to leave these conversations feeling equipped to please ask kids about sexual abuse. So this session's guest speaker is Mars, and we will actually be diving deep into a conversation regarding how childhood sexual abuse affects survivors. But before we begin, please know that the information you hear today may be triggering. So if you and or someone you know has experienced sexual abuse, do not hesitate to call the National Sexual Abuse Hotline. Their phone number is 1-800-656-4673. Hey, Mars, how are you?
Hi. I'm
Yes,
okay. I'm
good,
okay. Yeah.
good. So I always like to begin by asking our guest speakers to please introduce themselves and share a little about who they are for everyone who's watching.
Okay. So yes, my name is Mars, and there's a planet behind me. I guess that's the Earth, actually.
Love it.
Appropriate. I am many things. I am originally from Arkansas, but I live in Brooklyn. I've been here for almost 12 years now. What do I do? I'm a musician. I
Mhm.
have I have a small dog walking business that I've been doing for several years. Um, I kind of am dabbling with writing comics. I'm a YouTube creator. I'm a Gemini, so I'm
Right.
involved with many projects.
Right. The
There's
creator
too
of all
many.
creators, right?
There's too many to list. I could keep going.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And so, as I stated earlier, the point of this campaign is to bring awareness to childhood sexual abuse so that we can actually work together to end the silent suffering that so many children across the globe are experiencing. So, Mars, do you believe that childhood sexual abuse is talked about enough in our communities?
No.
Yeah.
I would say no, not at all. I feel like it's kind of um I don't know, I feel like it's kind of the elephant in the room where people are kind of tiptoeing around it, or
Right.
not directly addressing it or directly acknowledging it, and just like afraid to talk about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. That doesn't help. That doesn't help for children who are silently suffering, such as
Right, right,
myself,
right.
suffering for 18 years. I mean, I wouldn't say 18 years because I wasn't, but many years. Yeah.
Yeah.
I experienced my childhood sexual abuse when I was maybe six or something, six
Mm,
or seven, and I didn't tell anyone, and I just locked it in my mind and forgot about it
right,
until one day in college when I was taking Psych 101, and I was like, oh, that's
right,
happened to me.
right.
Yeah.
Wow. Definitely a huge similarity between the both of us. And I think I shared this with you earlier on in a private
Mm-hmm.
conversation, but I too, experienced abuse very young and buried it. It was, now that I look back on it, I think it was my way of coping and surviving, if you will, because it's
Yes,
like
yes.
such a heavy, burden to carry. And so it became almost hard to function. So it's like if once I bury it, or I try to hide it, or I try to people please, then maybe this thing won't come back up, and this thing won't
Yeah.
happen to me, and I would be perfect enough so that,
Mhm.
I won't even have to talk about it, or I won't have to endure it again. So I totally get that. And I know, we all experience or react to trauma in different ways. But today we're getting to hear from multiple childhood sexual abuse survivors. And there's so many similarities in all of our journeys. So Mars, can you share maybe some emotional and or physical effects that surviving childhood sexual abuse can have on someone?
Sure. So my childhood sexual abuse is also entangled with physical abuse,
Mhm.
neglect, verbal abuse. And so it's kind of hard to like separate and like sift
Right.
through it. So it's kind of all like entangled.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would say I I mean, I only very recently started to learn how to love myself. And
Right.
like as of 4 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And that affected friendships, just like all the anger and like frustration and just like not wanting to be touched.
Right. Right.
And like moments when I was wanting to be like intimate with someone, like there would be a part of me who would want that, but at the same time dreading it.
Yeah.
Um, and that, yeah, like that can cause a rift in relationships and yeah, I mean, really just I didn't know how to love myself. That's like the main thing,
Right.
really. Just I didn't have that, and like no one I just like didn't feel loved. And
Yeah.
yeah, like we were saying, like there was no adult I could go to talk about the abuse, whether it was the childhood sexual abuse or the physical abuse. I had no
Right.
one to turn to. It was just me by myself. And yeah, that was just like a coping mechanism to just lock it in my mind, forget about it. And
Exactly.
yeah,
Because unfortunately, that reality is just the same for so many of us. And that's kind of why, or not even kind of, but mostly why this campaign was created, because no one is talking to children. No one is providing that safe space and that environment for kids to be able to open up, and share these different types of experiences and encounters. So, with that being said, the sense of loneliness that we experience, it could be somewhat paralyzing to even want to open up and talk about it. So, do you think that the lack of support that you felt at that age is maybe why you didn't speak up? Or what, in your personal opinion, could possibly lead to a survivor not readily disclosing that abuse?
yeah, I mean, I do think there was no support. There were no adults I felt like I could run to.
Yeah.
Um, there was one instance in kindergarten because I people thought I was mute because I didn't speak at all in kindergarten.
Mm, yeah.
Um, and my kindergarten, I remember my kindergarten teacher setting me aside like after class and
Hmm.
just say and like asking me questions like about my home life, but I felt like I was in
Right.
trouble.
Yeah.
So I was not being, I don't know, I wasn't like really saying anything. I thought I was in trouble because I was getting pulled aside after class.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like I feel like she wanted to help me, but at the same time, yeah, I was confused. I was just a little kid. Like I thought I was in trouble.
Right.
But I did need an adult like that I trusted to
Right.
talk to, but I just didn't have that at all.
Yeah.
And now I'm that adult that my childhood self can talk to.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
Definitely. The journey of just reconnecting and refinding, my inner child and reparenting her, letting her know
Yeah.
that she's loved now and that she's safe, and that all the things that she did after that abuse is okay. That was her surviving. That was her dealing with something that many of us, still to today can't understand, why it happened or how it could happen. I think another big part and just a reoccurring theme throughout these conversations is the fact that a lot of times the abuse happens from people that we know, so it's people that we trust and it's
Yeah.
family at times. And so that also makes it really hard for survivors to come out, and talk about it, because it's just this sense of, wait, was I not supposed to trust, this person, or was it something that I did? So it's all of this
Hmm.
internal questioning that ends up taking place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And so J2 West overall is so committed to healing our communities of color, or as I like to say, our melanin rich communities. And I've had so many private conversations with members of Journey to Self, and they're always like, Aniqua, what is the point of speaking up? Like, what does it actually do? And so that led me to thinking, what resources are out there? Once we speak up, then what? So, from your personal experience, do you feel that there are enough resources for survivors of sexual abuse?
I feel like there could always be more. There could always
Right.
be more. And also sometimes you have to go looking for it.
Yeah.
I'm in this, I attend ASCA, Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, and
Mhm.
I had to go looking for it. It didn't it wasn't like on a billboard or somewhere. I
Right.
had to like
Right.
literally Google, what do I do as a survivor of child abuse?
Yeah.
And I had to go digging around, and yeah, I feel like there could always be more, and it can
Right.
be, yeah, just like more like in your, well, not in your face, but
But yeah, seriously.
more readily available. It could always be more
Right.
readily available.
Right,
Yeah.
because we know how frequently, childhood sexual abuse occurs. And so it's like, if we have this big reoccurring problem, but no solutions advertised or no solutions in arm's reach, then it
Yeah.
somewhat becomes this systematic problem that we're starting to see. And so the Please Ask campaign, while we are highlighting survivors and we're having different trainings on how to ask, because I've shared so many times that, wow, my abuse happened under the age of 5. There were maybe 2 times in my life where my mom, may she just continue to rest in peace, where she tried to ask, but also answered it for me. And so it didn't leave space like for me to tell my truth. And what I mean by that was, there were times, especially when my abuser ended up going to jail for abusing another child, she sat me down and she's like, okay, so I know, this didn't happen to you. And, my brother could not have done this, but I still want to ask. And so I'm like, like, how
Mm.
do I, like, at such a young age, kind of tell my mom, no, you're wrong, actually.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
did
That,
these things, right? So it's
yeah.
just
It's
this
hard.
discomfort, yeah, that somewhat takes place when you're trying to speak up and you're trying to just share your story. So with the Please Ask campaign, we're hoping that we start to have these uncomfortable stories, because at the end of the day, when we don't do it, it continues to happen. When we don't address the offenders as well, it continues
Yeah.
to happen, because just like it's so many survivors, there are so many offenders too. So it's kind of hard to leave them out of the conversation. So hopefully, this campaign continues to just be enlightening, and continues to open people's eyes. And with that being said, Mars, what did you find so unique about the Please Ask campaign, and why did you agree to like sit down with me and be a part of it?
Um, I mean, from your initial um message to me on Instagram, I was like, huh, okay, tell me more. Tell me more. This is interesting.
Right.
Um, and then yeah, having that private one-on-one conversation, I was like, okay, yes, this is something that I believe in. Yeah, it's childhood sexual abuse is not spoken about enough, and
Right.
I really appreciate that. Yeah, that you're a Black woman and you're doing this like for the community. Um,
Right.
yeah, I feel like, I mean, in general, it's not childhood sexual abuse is not talked about enough,
Yeah.
and yeah, people need resources and hope. I feel like you're everything you're doing is bringing hope, or trying to bring hope to people,
Right.
and bring resources, and just, yeah, like not letting children suffer in silence.
Right. Right.
And yeah.
Yeah, and so Journey to Self is just so committed on this whole literally journey to self, right? Being able to just break free from all of the characteristics that can at times be constraints, to freeing yourself and living in all of your glory. And so a part of being your true self and just taking this brave journey is facing the things that you went through to become, who you are today. And also knowing that you have that power to no longer be those things. And so a part of that concept, I felt we had to address childhood sexual abuse, not only because me as the founder of Journey to Self experienced it, and then I also have experience raising a child who also endured childhood sexual abuse. But every time I talk to somebody, they're like, oh my gosh, me too. And so I'm like, how can we all, begin to heal collectively? And so the birthing of Please Ask definitely took place. And I'm so glad to have you. You just shared that, I stalked you for a little bit on IG before finding the courage to reach out. And you are such a just dynamic soul. I always like go to all of the pages that you have tagged in your other pages, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like all of this talent, and all of this light. So it's such a privilege to be able to talk with you and be able to share this space with you. And for any of our viewers who are just as interested in learning more about your journey and more about just your endeavors overall, how can they follow you after today?
um well, I'm currently taking a break from Instagram because of the news and personal
Yeah.
issues, but you do usually spend a lot of time on Instagram posting my stories, and so I guess I can share that, and then my Instagram has like links to other stuff that I do. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, my Instagram is mmdizzy, which is my old AOL address from when I was a teenager. Um, it's just like my initials, MMD, and then IZZIE.
Perfect. Yes. And I
M
will
Dizzy.
definitely tag you in this post too, just so people can
Cool.
easily, get over to your page. And Mars, I want to thank you so, so much just for your feedback, for being open and sharing your personal story and your journey with us. Um, I yeah, you and I, we're gonna keep in contact. Mars will also be on another day of our Please Ask campaign where we'll get to just dig a little bit deeper into how we both are healing from the childhood sexual abuse that we experienced. So to everyone who is watching, we want to thank you all too. You'll still have multiple opportunities to engage with us. We'll be posting statistics and facts surrounding childhood sexual abuse. So be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, subscribe to the YouTube, all methods. So that way you can continue to just receive all of the knowledge, all of the trainings, and all of the helpful information. So thanks again for watching. And Mars, I will definitely remain in contact.